much is your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the chance to focus your time on what you do best. Don't waste your time mailing letters or shipping packages. Stamps is there to help. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. Get up to 89% off USPS, UPS, and other carriers, and schedule free package pickups all from one place. Stamps.com also makes it easy to track shipments, manage contacts, and report on how much you send and spend. Over the last 28 years, more than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Don't waste time worrying about being a postage expert or standing in line to drop off letters and packages. Let Stamps.com do what they do best so you can do what you do better. Go to Stamps.com/audio to sign up for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 138 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing okay, man.
I know you've had a rough couple of weeks. We just got done recording True Crime All the Time. We talked about it on there. But I think, to be fair, we need to mention it on this podcast as well. There are some people that listen to this that may not listen to True Crime All the Time. They may not follow us on social media. You've had a rough couple of weeks.
Yep.
And it culminated with your dad's passing last week.
Right.
So I know it's been hard on you. You and I have talked a lot. I do think it's good for you to get into the studio. Right. This is something that you and I have been doing week in, week out for 3 years. This is normalcy. This is what we do.
It's good to jump back into this.
I mean, it's a time to spend with family, but it's also a time to find some normalcy. I hate to keep using that word, but...
Yeah, well, I want to get my mind off of some things.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I will say, the support of the people in TCAT Nation, it has been unbelievable.
Oh, man, it's been wonderful, and I have to thank every one of you for the messages, the emails, the messages, the voicemail messages, the flowers that you sent to the service, to the donations to hospice. I mean, just everything, just being really understanding.
Yeah, blew me away, to be honest with you. So speaking of True Crime All the Time, we have an episode out right now. It's on Paul Hill. I really found this episode extremely interesting. Right? There's a lot going on here. Paul Hill is a guy that was a minister at one point in his life. And this is a case that centers around abortion. Very touchy subject for a lot of people. Paul Hill developed what you would have to call, Gibbs, an extremist view of abortion. He was very anti-abortion, but to the most extreme that he could be.
Very much so.
So much so that he believed the only way to stop abortion was to kill the doctors who were performing them. And that's what he set out to do. And that's what he did. But it's an interesting episode. Make sure you check that out. We have some new Patreon supporters. So let's give our shout outs. We had Sydney.
What's up, Sydney?
Cheryl Bullock.
Hey, Cheryl.
Ian Easy.
Easy?
Easy.
Easy.
Kate.
Hey, Kate.
Charlotte Brightwell.
Hey, Charlotte.
Mel Leos.
Hey, Mel.
Heather Henson.
What's up, Heather?
Jane Owen.
Hey, Jane.
Veronica.
What's up, Veronica?
Katrina Goodger. Or Goodger. I'm not sure how to say that.
Katrina. That's how you say it.
Tamara Bond Hoffman.
Hey, Tamara.
Shauna Reynolds Gay.
Hey, Shauna.
Really got to run on these hyphenated names here.
Yeah, we do.
Cindy Hepicausen.
Hey, Hepicausen.
Claudia Sarney.
Hey, Claudia.
Alyssa Wunderlich.
What Wunderlich.
Wunderlich.
Hey, Wunderlich.
Angela Wheelahan.
Close to Bobby Callahan. That's how my mind worked right there. Just wanted you to know I went right to Bobby Callahan of Callahan Motors or Callahan Brakes from...
His name wasn't Bobby.
Was it? I'm so far off.
Are you talking about are you talking about Farley's character?
Yeah.
His name was Tommy, which led to the movie being called Tommy Boy.
Oh, yeah.
If not, the movie would have been called Bobby Boy.
I think in the original script, it was Bobby Boy.
The original script that you worked on?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then, some of the Saturday Night Live people got involved and changed it up to Tommy Boy.
Gotcha. We had Brian Epting.
Hey, Brian.
Matt Bertone.
What's up, Matt?
Rose S.
Hey, Rose.
Krista Francis.
Hey, Krista.
Robert Levine.
It's like the most normal name right there. About all the names today.
Robert Levine.
Hey, Robert.
Melissa Kennedy. That's pretty easy to say.
Hey, Melissa.
And Larissa Burton.
What's up, Larissa?
And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Shonda Shepherd.
Hey, Shonda.
Or Shanda. I don't always know which way to go.
Hey, Shanda.
What I do know is she's been with us a long time. A couple of years of long-time Patreon support. We really appreciate it. We had some PayPal support as well. We had Jenny Nicholas.
Hey, Jenny.
Katie Villarreal.
Villarreal.
Joe Dooley.
Hey, Joe.
And Brett Ernsberger.
Hey, Brett.
So we appreciate all the support we get. Don't forget to check out the Reviews Are In podcast. New episodes out every Tuesday. We didn't put an episode out last week, and I think everybody knows why.
Right.
That's it. I think we're ready to jump right into this episode of Unsolved. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We have two separate cases for you in this episode. They're both from Ohio. They're both actually very close to where you and I live, Gibbs. The first is the 2010 disappearance of Nikki Lyn Forrest of Troy, Ohio, which is just north of us. And then the second is the 2011 unsolved murder of Katelyn Markham of Fairfield, Ohio, which is to the south of us. Where we live in the Dayton, Ohio area, it's kind of, or at least where I live, it's about smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
Between these two cases, north and south.
Couldn't be more in the middle than right here.
So let's dive into the 2010 disappearance of Nikki Lyn Forrest. Nikki was born on November 29th, 1990. She was said to be a good kid. Growing up, came from a good family. She did great in school. She was in the band. She was in the choir. She had an affinity for music. I think that's pretty safe to say. Nikki went missing on September 25th, 2010. At the time, she was 19 years old and just over 4 months pregnant. Nikki was 5'2", 160 pounds. She had brown hair, brown eyes. She had a few tattoos. She had some piercings. So when you talk about the tattoos, she had a tattoo on her upper arm that was a picture of a scarecrow saying, "If I only had a brain." Obviously an ode to the Wizard of Oz. She had a tattoo on her stomach of a moth. And she had another of what appeared to be bat wings on her lower back.
What's on your lower back? I know you got like a tattoo on your lower back.
Just says Gibby.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
I love that I won that bet. Mm-hmm. That was one of the best bets I ever won.
It was a very rough day for me.
You said, "I don't want a lower back tattoo." I said, "Well, you lost a bet, buddy." I said I could have it put anywhere I want it, and that's where it went.
Yeah, it was a rough day.
Yeah.
But when talking about Nikki, I mentioned piercings. She had her ears pierced, but she also had some tongue piercings as well. Again, I think these are all important when you're talking about somebody that disappeared, right? Height, weight, tattoos. These are all distinguishing features, very important when trying to get the word out about someone that's missing. At the time Nikki disappeared, we mentioned it, just a little bit over 4 months pregnant, but this was also a high risk pregnancy. And reports said that she was supposed to give herself 2 shots a day with some special medication that was designed to prevent a miscarriage. Nikki was last seen the day she went missing, September 25th, in the city of Troy, Ohio. At the time, Nikki was living with her godmother on Young Street in a neighboring town, Piqua. But on this day, the two got into a pretty big fight. And it was a fight about what a lot of people fight about, right? Respecting the house, doing your chores. I mean, this happens in my house on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to live with me rent free, I kind of want you to do a few things. Put away your dirty clothes.
Yeah, I find my wife and I are saying that to the kids all the time. We're not asking a lot of you. Can you just fold these clothes? If you use a dish, can you put it in the dishwasher? It is an uphill battle. And I think a lot of people listening can commiserate with that type of uphill battle.
Even with an adult kid living with you still,
sure,
respect my rules because I'm the one paying the mortgage. That's right. I mean, you make me respect stuff when I show up.
I make you fold your clothes and put your dishes away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So this fight was enough for Nikki to say, you know what, I've had enough. And she left her godmother's home. And by all accounts, Gibbs, this was going to be something at least somewhat semi-permanent. She packed up her stuff. This wasn't a storm out of the house, I'll be back later type of thing. I mean, packing up all your stuff and leaving, it's kind of like, this is over.
Yeah, I'm gone. Bye.
She got a ride over to her girlfriend's home in Troy. And on the ride, she told this friend the story about the fight, how she had left her godmother's home. After being dropped off, Nikki walked about 3 or 4 blocks to her on again, off again boyfriend's place. So now we're getting into the evening, right? She got to her quasi boyfriend's place. I don't know what else to call him. They hung out for a little bit, but then they got into a fight.
Got a little tense.
And this fight centered around whether or not this man was the father of her unborn baby.
Things will go tense really quick when you have that conversation of, am I the father or is that somebody else's child?
And it definitely escalated to the point where he kicked her out of his house. So either he didn't get the answers he was looking for, or he didn't like the answer he got.
And I'd have to agree, because why else would you say, hey, you got to go?
Right.
If you can't tell me definitively that this is mine, we have a problem.
Now, the boyfriend, as I'll call him, later told police that they were in the middle of this argument about who the father of the baby was when he says a blue sedan pulled up. Nikki grabbed her things, got in the car, and left. And this is it, Gibbs. She was never seen again. Nikki's godmother reported her missing 2 days later. And it was after the local Kroger's called her to say that someone had dropped off Nikki's purse at the store. And by this time, the godmother was worried anyway. Nikki wasn't answering text messages, and she failed to show up at her job at the Waffle House 2 days in a row.
Which is concerning.
Very concerning. So, and we have to talk about the purse and how it came to end up at this Kroger's the same day that Nikki went missing. An older couple was walking over a covered bridge on Eldine Road. This is between Troy and Piqua.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this bridge because when I was at UPS, I used to deliver the Troy Piqua area, and I had a buddy that covered a route for somebody else, and it was his first time driving one of the UPS trucks. And
it's got to be a harrowing experience. It's your first time out.
Yeah, and so they come in different sizes, right? Some smaller, taller, shorter, whatever.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he had one of the big ones. I'm setting these up for you, so I'm like, damn, what am I saying that for? And he was coming back from picking up some parcels and decided to take the shortcut over the bridge on Eldine Road. What he forgot to understand is that not every truck can go under that covered bridge.
There's a height restriction.
Yes. And he went full force into it and ripped the top of the UPS vehicle off and did some major damage to the covered bridge.
Well, I was going to say, I would have thought he would have ripped the bridge, essentially the cover, right off. But you're saying it did some pretty massive damage to the truck as well.
Oh, yeah, that fiberglass top up there. Yeah, he certainly did. And we didn't let him live it down either.
Well, no, why would you?
I mean,
so this couple's walking and they found a purse. This purse would ultimately turn out to belong to Nikki. Inside, they found her driver's license, but they also found some medicine, a prescription that she had filled at the Kroger pharmacy. This was some medicine that she needed to take for her pregnancy. They found a food stamp card and they found a medical insurance card. But instead of turning in the purse to police, they chose to drive through downtown Piqua all the way out to the Piqua Kroger and turn it into the store pharmacy.
Which is strange because they were probably less than a couple blocks from dropping it off at the police department versus driving several miles through downtown to get out on the other side of town to Kroger's. I find it bizarre. I think other people find it bizarre. Why not just take it to the police and say, I found this and let me show you where I found it, because it could have an impact on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously nothing nefarious on the part of this couple.
Right.
I think what they thought was that, okay, we're going to take it to Kroger. We're going to give it to the pharmacist. This Nikki person is going to at some point have to come back to the pharmacy. She doesn't have her medicine.
Right, that she needs.
So when she comes back, this is where the purse will be.
Right.
I think that's what their thinking was, and the store will give it to her and all will be right with the world. Now, they did tell the pharmacist where they found it and how strange they thought that it was out there where it was, but they didn't leave their name, their contact information. So we don't actually know who this couple was, and the police don't know.
No.
So what happened was they were never able to identify the couple. They were never able to ask them any questions.
Yeah. Was it found on the left side of the road, the right side of the road?
And I think that goes back to what you were saying, that some people do find it odd that, why wouldn't you just take it to the police, tell them exactly where you found it, give them some clues? Now, I'm sure, Gibbs, this couple didn't think this was going to be related to a pretty serious disappearance and possible murder.
Right. No, they probably just thinking they did the right thing.
Right.
When they did. I mean, technically, really, it was a nice gesture.
It was. I don't want to badmouth this couple at all, but there are people that think, that's kind of strange. Why would you not take it to the police station? And I think it's a valid question.
Right.
The problem is we don't know the answer because we don't know who these people are, and police have never talked to them. So the godmother called police. They're investigating Nikki's disappearance. They figured out that she never picked up her last paycheck from the Waffle House, which to me right away says this is not someone that is planning to leave, because okay, you're making a plan that you're going to get the heck out of Dodge.
Right.
Well, you've got a paycheck there waiting. You're going to get that.
Why wouldn't you?
There's no reason not to. You're going to need that money wherever you're going.
Right. And trust me, if you're waitressing at Waffle House, you need the money. That's some hard work. That's not something that you're just doing for fun. You're working your, off, waiting on tables. You want that money wherever you're headed.
No, I think you're right. When we're talking about Nikki Forrest, this is not a person that had a ton of money. This was not a wealthy person. So I think not picking up this last paycheck definitely means a lot in the grand scheme of things. The other thing that police did was they began to look into birth records around the time that the baby was due. Obviously, this is many months later. She was just a little bit over 4 months pregnant. They looked in Ohio, but they also expanded the search into other states. No luck. Investigators got Nikki's cell phone records, and they found out that her cell phone was never used after the day she went missing. It was said that Nikki's boyfriend, who she saw the night she disappeared, wasn't able to provide police with, any real useful information.
Yeah, I think he was just okay saying, We had an argument about who the father of the baby was. She left. Blue sedan. That's all I can tell you. I'm done.
And maybe that is all he could tell her. We don't know.
Right.
Police had at least one family member of Nikki's come forward and say that she had been talking about, you could say almost threatening, to move away, to move out of state because she didn't like her current situation.
Well, I think we've all been there before at one point in our life, you know?
Oh, I threaten to move out of state on a regular basis.
I think you just did it this morning.
Yeah. My wife does not take it well at all. But to add to that, it was known that Nikki did have some family in both Washington State and Tennessee. So those would have been possible destinations if she were to have left on her own. The problem with this case, Gibbs, is police have no idea what happened. They're not sure. They did find out from Nikki's medical records that she had 3 previous miscarriages, which is why she was on that medicine.
Right.
I have to assume she had a history of miscarriages, so makes sense that she was on a medicine to prevent that from happening again. But we said she's 19 years old.
Yeah.
That's a lot going on in your first 19 years of life.
It really is.
So there's a lot of possibilities in this case. Nikki could have left on her own, maybe left with whoever picked her up in the blue sedan. Maybe she delivered the baby. Maybe she had another miscarriage.
Right.
She could have moved west to Washington State. She could have moved south to Tennessee. The problem there with that, for me, is if she had family and contacted those family members, that would have gotten back.
Yeah, you would think by now.
To her family in Ohio. I don't think those things are the most logical. Unfortunately, I think you really have to look at, okay, who picked her up in this blue sedan, which is a mystery. Police have never been able to figure it out.
No.
I think you also have to believe that very strange that you're going to move out of state, start a new life, but you're going to toss your purse. Doesn't make any sense.
No, you think you'd want that information with you.
Wherever you're going.
Yeah.
So, I think logically, you really have to look at this blue sedan that picked up Nikki that night. The problem is police don't know who owns it, who was driving it, but whoever it was, you would think would be a person of interest. Somebody that police would want to talk to that possibly could have had something to do with Nikki's disappearance. The other thing about this case, Gibbs, and it's kind of where we live. We live in the Interstate 75 corridor. I'm literally 3 minutes away from getting on 75. It runs right through Dayton, Ohio. We're also not that far from Detroit, Michigan. Yeah. There has been a lot of talk about sex trafficking up and down the I-75 corridor, people coming from Detroit to some of the smaller towns in Ohio to find their victims.
Yeah, it's easy just to get off the exit ramp, drive back into one of the neighboring subdivisions, grab and go.
It scares me.
Yeah.
You and I have been talking about this sex trafficking a lot lately. It scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah. They just operate so fast.
Well, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Detroit, but there has been a lot of talk about specifically the Detroit area. The thing about Detroit, because I lived there for a number of years, you can cross over into Canada very quickly.
Right.
Detroit butts up to Windsor, Canada. It's a very quick ride, across the bridge. The problem is police have no idea what happened to Nikki Forrest. We have no idea. The sad part is we may never know what happened to Nikki. And I think you find this with a lot of unsolved cases. It's part of the reason that makes them so heartbreaking. I mean, there are many reasons to call some of these unsolved cases heartbreaking.
Right.
But the not knowing.
Oh.
Her family has no idea. Is she somewhere safe, living a new life?
Right.
Or was she snatched up by somebody, forced into the sex trade industry, into the sex trafficking thing? Or was she killed and her body hidden in a way that to this point, it's never been found?
And what about the baby? Did she ever have it?
Yeah, I think that adds another layer to the case, but it's one of those things, right? She either left on her own and is okay,
Right.
having the baby or not having the baby, or she was taken against her will and or killed. And there's not that many options
No.
for somebody that disappears and is never found again. And one of the big things, or issues I have with this one is the lack of suspects.
Right.
I mean, I think you could label certain people as persons of interest, people that the police have talked to, the boyfriend, whoever's in this blue sedan, to me, is a definite person of interest.
For sure. Maybe if the boyfriend wasn't the potential father, whoever the father of the child is, could be a person of interest.
Well, and it's one thing we haven't talked about. That could be a motive for murder, right? Jealousy. Somebody's upset about the fact that either they are the father or they're not the father. It could go either way.
Right.
That could be a definite motive for murder.
Yeah, because if they are the father and they don't want that responsibility because of the financial obligation that maybe they're going to fill, maybe that's why.
Because then the motive takes on a monetary aspect. And we know money is the motive for a lot of murders. It's just plain and simple. It is.
It really is, yeah.
Let's turn now to the unsolved murder of Katelyn Markham. Katelyn Markham was 21 years old when she went missing on Saturday, August 13th, 2011. It was just 2 days before her 22nd birthday. Katelyn had a lot going on for her. She was about ready to graduate from art school. She was engaged and was soon to marry her fiance, John Carter. Then they were set to move to Colorado.
That's a lot of activity right there.
And it's a lot to look forward to. Right? I don't want to compare and contrast the two cases too much, but we talked about Nikki and the fact that she wasn't happy. She had things going on in her life that she was not happy about. She told family members,
right?
If things don't get better, I'm taking off. I'm going to start over or start a new life somewhere else because the one I've got here is not working. I think you're talking about something totally different in the case of Katelyn Markham. By all accounts, she was happy.
Yeah.
She's about ready to graduate. She's going to get married.
Yeah, she's going to marry her longtime boyfriend for, I think I read 6-7 years they've been together.
Katelyn went to work on the 13th at a store called David's Bridal Shop in the mall. She was the manager. She was there from 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m.
That's a long day, man.
That is a long day. That's a long time to be in the mall, too.
Yeah.
For me. I'm not a mall guy.
I didn't even think you went in anymore. I thought you just pulled up, dropped off, and circled around and said, be back out by the time I come around.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
I used to love to go to the mall as a youngster.
Yeah.
I can't stand the mall now.
But you don't like people in general.
Well, that's true. I have a very general dislike of most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's the age of Amazon. It's the ability to click a button and it just shows up at your house. Why do I need to go to the mall? There's much less of a need. They don't have the arcade anymore, which is what I used to go to a lot.
Oh, yeah.
When I was younger.
Work takes up most of your time. That's why you should use Stamps.com to save time with your mailing and shipping. Stamps.com will simplify your postage needs and add valuable time back into your workday, so you have flexibility to focus on more important things. Stamps.com can handle your mailing and shipping needs with rates up to 88% off UPS and USPS. Send invoices, checks, certified mail, packages, and anything else you need to keep your business running with Stamps.com. If you sell online, connecting with every major marketplace and shopping cart is easy. Plus, you can schedule package pickups through their dashboard and automatically see your cheapest and fastest shipping options from different carriers with Stamps.com's Rate Advisor. Add more flexibility to your workday with Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com/program to sign up for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/program.
So after she finished this shift at David's Bridal Shop, she came home and John was waiting for her in her apartment. Now, from what I understand, Gibbs, they didn't live together. John had a key to the apartment, though, and could come and go as he wanted.
Right.
So he's waiting for Katelyn. John later said that they ate dinner together. And then a little bit later, they did some shrooms. And then they just sat around the apartment relaxing. At around 9 to 9:30 p.m., one of John's friends stopped over at the apartment, hung out with the pair for a while, and then he left around 10:30 p.m. According to him, he said this later. He also said that it seemed as though there was some tension between John and Katelyn.
Yeah, you've been over to a friend's house before and you can just feel it, You're
You
like,
can feel the tension in the air.
yeah, you're like, I came over at the wrong time, didn't I? And then you want to leave right then, but your buddy's like, no, I really want you to stay, man.
No,
Don't leave me.
You can tell, if there was a fight that was going on that they were in the middle of, let's say, at the time you showed up. It's not like people can just turn it off and be their cheery, happy, normal selves. It takes a while. Well, for me, it does.
Sure.
Once that switch gets flipped, it takes a while for me to go back to being happy-go-lucky. So I mentioned that the friend left at 10:30. John later said that he left around 11:30 to head to a friend's party. Katelyn was tired and said that she just wanted to go to bed. This is the last time that Katelyn was seen alive by John late Saturday around 11:30 p.m. when he said he left her to go to this party. Now, they texted up until about 1 a.m. when Katelyn said that she was going to bed. And this can all be confirmed through cell phone records, obviously, but the records also show that there was no more activity after this time frame. John said that he left the party around 4 a.m. He got home and he sent a text to Katelyn that said good morning and that he loved her, thinking that, okay, she's going to wake up the next morning, see my text, because I'm not going to bed till about 4:30. I'm not going to be up. So John went to bed 4:30. This was on the 14th. Now, Katelyn was scheduled to be back at the bridal store at 11 a.m. the next day. As a Sunday, she never made it in, and she never called.
Which is strange for a manager.
It is, and we always say it's a bad sign because, I think when we're talking about Katelyn, from everything you read, she was a responsible individual.
Right.
Like we said, she had a lot going on, especially as the manager, you would think, you got to call somebody. Now, if you're an employee who doesn't care about your job, okay, maybe you don't call.
Right.
But I don't think this is that person, that type of person.
She's got rent to pay. She's got a wedding to plan. She needs the money.
Yeah, and she's a responsible person. I think you factor all that in. So John woke up around 4:30 p.m., slept about 12 hours.
Remember those days?
Yeah, I do remember those days. Must have been a hell of a party.
Yeah.
And he must have tied one on. But he also had to get ready for his job delivering pizzas. So he worked later at night. He could sleep in. Now, 4:30 is more than sleeping in, but that's a whole day.
Yeah.
You've lost a whole day of your life there. So John sent Katelyn several text messages from the time that he got up at around 4:30 till about 7 p.m. He didn't get replies on any of them, which I'm sure to him would have been very strange. So he decided to drive over to her apartment to see what was going on, see if she was there. He saw her car out front. So he went into the apartment, but she wasn't there. No Katelyn. But what was in her apartment was her purse. Her keys were laying on the bed, and her dog was locked up in a room. All of this very strange to John, a person that's known her for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, she's supposed to be at work. Her car's out front. Purse and keys are laying on her bed, and the dog's in that bedroom locked up, which is something she never did.
Well, because apparently she loved this dog. And normally when she left, she would put the dog in the bathroom downstairs, but make sure that it had plenty of food, plenty of water, which is what you do when you care about your pets.
Right.
So I think right away, Gibbs, John's very concerned. Where is she at? Now, one thing we couldn't find is whether or not John called the bridal shop. You would assume he would have. We couldn't find it in the research. I think it would be very strange to go straight to the point of, okay, I'm driving over to the apartment. Because knowing that she's supposed to work, you would think he would call the bridal shop. And maybe he did. We just don't have that information.
Right.
But for sure, John's very concerned at this point. He doesn't know where Katelyn is. There's a lot of stuff left at the house that normally would not be there. But one thing that's not is her cell phone. So according to John, he began to call mutual friends. And then he decided to leave and head over to a friend's house because that friend's cell phone was not turned on. So going to head over there, ask the friend if he knows where Katelyn is. On the way to this friend's house, John called Katelyn's dad. And Gibbs, as a dad, you get a call like that, your spidey senses go into overdrive very quickly.
Absolutely.
Thinking, okay, something is not right here.
I'm thinking you get a call like that, you're grabbing your arsenal bag, and you, by the time that person says, I can't find your daughter, you're already at the place.
I'm out the door. Yep. I've called you. I said, meet me here.
Yep.
So Katelyn's dad went over to her apartment, and on the way over, he called the local police. He was that concerned. John called 911 on his way back to the apartment to report Katelyn missing. John and Katelyn's dad met at her apartment, and her dad used his key to enter. Police arrive as well. So at the apartment, you have police, you have Katelyn's dad, and you have John. Police do their investigation. I think pretty quickly, they figure out that there's nothing that indicated that there was a struggle. There's nothing that indicated that there was a theft, like there was robbery, anything like that. But there was some concern, right? As they got onto the second floor of the apartment, this was a townhome. And it goes back to what we already mentioned. I think everybody involved thought, all right, no way Katelyn would leave her purse. And she would not leave her dog locked up in a bedroom without food and water.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any good sense.
The dog had peed and pooped in several spots, leading everyone to think, okay, this dog's been cooped up for quite a long period of time. Police interviewed John, the fiance, as you would expect. He said he had no idea where Katelyn was, where she could have gone to. Now, John did tell police that he and Katelyn had a small fight over finances. It happened a couple of days before she went missing. He said it got a little heated, but it was no big deal. It wasn't anything that they didn't work out.
I mean, it's going to happen, right? If you planning a wedding, planning to move to Colorado soon.
Well, you're young, right?
Yeah.
Both of these people are young. John's delivering pizzas. He's not making a ton of money.
Right.
She's a manager at a bridal shop. She's not making a ton of money.
Budget's going to be tight.
It's always going to be tight at that age. And you're going to fight over money. It's just, I think back to my wife and I when we were young, just starting out, finances were always an issue.
Yeah.
There's just never enough money to go around, and it causes tension.
He probably came over and said, hey, I bought that new NBA game for my PlayStation. And she's probably like, what? We got to pay for this
We don't have the money
wedding.
for that. Yeah. That's how it goes. But I do think police have to look at this, right? Okay, it's a fight, it's an argument, whatever you want to call it. It happened, though, just a couple of days before she went missing. Police interviewed friends and neighbors. They interviewed anyone who they thought might have had any idea of what happened to Katelyn or happened in the days prior that could shed some light on it. Police and family, as well as some volunteers, they did searches. They searched around her apartment. They searched the mall where she worked. They also searched John's place, around John's place. Nothing.
No.
Nothing came up. They didn't find any sign of Katelyn, and there were really no leads that developed during this time.
And her phone records showed there was no activity, and her bank account showed no activity.
Very strange.
Very strange. I mean, the family puts out a reward for $5,000 that would be paid if somebody would give them a lead that actually found her somewhere.
So tough case, right? At this point, it's kind of stalled. The family doesn't get the lead that they're hoping for by offering the $5,000 reward. Instead, they get a phone call from police about 20 months after Katelyn disappeared, because on Sunday, April 7th, 2013, about 25 miles from Katelyn's townhome in Cedar Grove, Indiana, police were called out to an illegal trash dump site. 2 local trash pickers discovered a skull, a jawbone with teeth, some other bones under some trash in this rural wooded area.
The jawbone and the skull was inside of one of those grocery bags, those plastic grocery bags from a Kroger store.
Yeah, and Gibbs, there have been some people that have speculated that maybe this plastic bag was put over Katelyn's head. Maybe it was used to suffocate her. It was left on her head. And then eventually that's how you have these bones, skull, jawbone, end up in the bag. That's a theory that is out there. And police on site, Gibbs, were able to tentatively identify the remains as Katelyn's. And the way it was done was through her teeth. I guess she had a very distinctive teeth pattern. I don't know how else to say it.
Right.
Or she had very distinctive teeth that by looking at the teeth versus pictures, they tentatively said, yeah, this is Katelyn. But a local anthropologist, forensic expert later confirmed that the remains were in fact hers. So this is what investigators believe, that Katelyn died somewhere else. She didn't die in this trash dump site. She died at another location and then was buried under a trash pile at this site in Indiana. The coroner ruled her death a homicide, but they could not tell for certain the cause of death or the way that she was killed.
It'd be tough to do at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's 20 months later. You're working with bones. Unless you're finding some type of saw marks and even then, it's hard to tell cause of death because that could have happened after somebody has already died.
Right. Somebody
attempted to cut up the body, things like that. So after the discovery of Katelyn's body, police re-interviewed the family. They re-interviewed her fiance as well as other people that they had, interviewed initially, but nothing came from it.
But the strange thing in this case is someone decided to donate money to a special investigator, a private eye, because this unknown person didn't feel like the police department was doing the job they should be. And they really wanted to make sure that this family would find out who killed their daughter.
So we have an anonymous donor, right, paying a PI to try to solve this case. The private investigator was a guy by the name of J. Ryan Green. So Green began to investigate. And I think Gibbs, he focused in on the fiance pretty quickly. And one thing he found out was that John's family owned some property near the location in Indiana where Katelyn's remains were found.
Yeah, when you say near, we're talking minutes up the road from where she was found, and to the point that if you wanted to get to the family property, you would have to go past where she was found to get to their property.
It's a little suspicious, right? You're casting some suspicion on a person based on that. Green then looked into the 911 call. And I guess on the call, John told the dispatcher that Katelyn left her purse as well as her keys at her house and that her car was parked in the lot. He also told the dispatcher that a church street festival was going on just up from her townhome and that there were a lot of shady people there, I guess is the gist of what he said.
But I think that's a strange thing to say on a 911 call. And I think that's what Green is saying. You're calling 911 to say, hey, send help. I can't find whoever, whenever, right? That's what you call. You don't go into, hey, there's a festival down the street. I think there's some shady people that go to those festivals.
That could have had something to do with Katelyn's disappearance. When at that point in time, nobody knew, theoretically,
right,
where she was or what happened to her. So, yeah, I think you're right. Green looks at that and says, okay, it's almost as if possibly the fiancé is trying to lead police in a certain direction, which is strange because at that time, nobody knows what's going on.
Right.
So why mention that there are some shady people when you don't know that she's missing, you don't know there's foul play, you don't know anything?
Just seems premature.
Police asked Katelyn's fiancé, John, to take a polygraph, and he did. And apparently he took another one after the first one. But those results have not been made public. The police are holding those back.
It's a little strange to take two, I think.
Well, I think most people would think that indicates that maybe the first one was either inconclusive or came back as being deceptive. I mean, you can make assumptions about it. They may not be correct, but he also took a voice stress analysis test, and that one apparently came back as indecisive. Police also looked into John's friend, who was at the apartment the night that Katelyn was last seen. This guy's important, right? He was the second to last person known to have seen Katelyn alive. So according to the friend and John, this friend left Katelyn's apartment about an hour before John did. So he told police that he left Katelyn's apartment at a certain time, which when you butt it up against the time that John left, it ends up being about an hour before John says he left the apartment. Now, these guys were best friends and had been since they were in elementary school.
There's going to be some loyalty there, for sure.
There could be. Now, the police have come out and said that they do not consider this friend a suspect, but I'm not sure that Private Investigator Green feels the same way. You know, he's done some interviews with papers where he's expressed concern, or maybe concern is not the right word, Gibbs, doubt about what some of these people have said and maybe what their level of involvement really is. Now, even though police don't feel like this friend was involved, they do believe he was one of the last people to see Katelyn alive. There have been some people that have said that this friend sold the car that he owned at the time pretty quickly after the body was found. Now, that could be a coincidence. So Gibbs, over the years, I mean, obviously this case has gone cold. Investigators have said that there's really only three things that they believe could have happened that night. Either Katelyn was murdered.
Yeah, just a straight out homicide.
And then her body later dumped in that field, or there was some type of accident, and then the accident was covered up.
Right.
With her body being placed in that field. And then the third thing that they've offered up is a drug overdose. Accidental, I'll call it.
Right.
Somebody panicked and they covered it up. So those are the three things that they think are viable options. But there has been some activity in Katelyn's case in the last 18 months. 23-year-old Ellie Week disappeared from her Westchester, Ohio home on July 29th, 2018. Her body was found in a field about a month later in Liberty Township. Liberty Township, Westchester, and Fairfield are all very close to each other.
Yeah, I would say under 15 minutes apart.
But the thing about Ellie's case is that police were able to close in on her killer. She had filed harassment and stalking reports with the police in April on a man by the name of Michael Strauss. She said that he had been harassing her on the phone. He had also been following her.
It's kind of scary.
It is very scary. Stalking is a scary thing, man.
It really is. I mean, and I think we talked about it maybe on TCAT, maybe it was on Unsolved. My mom in the younger days had a stalker, and they had to tap the phones, and they were able to eventually identify him, arrest him, and we went to went to court and all that stuff.
Didn't it turn out to be somebody you went to school with?
It turned out to be the dad of somebody I went to school with.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, which is so awkward,
That's very strange.
Yeah, it actually ended up being somebody that worked for my dad in the real estate business. It was so bizarre.
So police arrested this Michael Strauss on August 25th of 2018, and they charged him with Ellie's murder. The tie-in, besides the fact that this happened fairly close to the area where Katelyn disappeared, is that police say Michael Strauss placed plastic wrap around Ellie's head, covered her mouth and nose, and suffocated her. So when you go back to the possible theory that Katelyn was killed by someone placing a plastic bag over her head, that's where you kind of get this tie-in. We do know that the Fairfield police have talked to the Westchester police as well as the Indiana State Police about the case and any similarities to Katelyn's murder. But the police aren't saying what those similarities may be other than the one we just mentioned. So obviously there could be a possibility here. We don't know yet. But the other interesting part of this is that after Michael Strauss's arrest, some photos were found showing John Carter, Katelyn's fiance, with Michael Strauss.
It's a little strange.
It is. That her fiance was known to hang around with this guy that turned out to be a murderer. I think it's pretty well known now that John and Michael ran in some of the same circles. They had some of the same friends. Now, they didn't really hang out together. It's thought that they didn't really know each other that well, but it's strange to say the least. Now, I will say that these photos that we're talking about, most, I don't know, maybe all are thought to have been taken after Katelyn's death. But it's been reported that the two knew each other prior to her death. So, make of that what you will.
Just seems to be some strange connections there, right?
Definitely. I mean, when you're talking about a guy that killed a woman using some type of plastic wrap over her, around her head, it's something that you got to look at.
Could he have had an obsession with Katelyn?
Maybe.
Kind of stalked her from a distance, I mean, and took an opportunity. I don't know.
Or could it be that John knows more than what he said? And maybe Michael Strauss plays some role in that. We don't know. John Carter has said that Michael Strauss has never been more than acquaintance to him. He also has said that some of his friends are friends with Strauss, but really that's the extent of their relationship. He said that if Strauss had anything to do with Katelyn's death, he knows nothing about it. Someone from the Cincinnati Enquirer asked if Strauss was present the last night that Katelyn Markham was seen alive. John Carter says that he doesn't believe so, but he also said, Gibbs, that there was that festival going on, so he can't be sure. So we come back around to this festival. I think the festival is kind of interesting from the standpoint that, it does draw people from different areas.
Does bring in your carnies.
You have some carnies. Now, I'm not putting down the carnies, but, is it possible that a predator would be at a festival? I think it's very possible. Number one, it's a pretty easy place to blend in.
Yeah, and you're going to come from an area that you might not live in that community because you're just coming for the festival to ride the rides or play if they have one of those gambling tents or whatever.
So is it possible that somebody saw Katelyn, targeted her? All of it's possible.
Yeah.
That's the thing with the Unsolved. There's so many possibilities that it's hard to rule anything out. Ryan Green told the Cincinnati Enquirer that, quote, Michael Strauss is the best lead the Katelyn Markham case has had since Katelyn went missing. Pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
But also, there haven't been a lot of leads. So
kind of have to
agree with him on that. he talks about the fact that the personality traits are there, the proximity is there. He's a little bit under the radar, right? Not really involved in the inner circle, most likely, of either John or Katelyn. I think he said that this guy probably hovered outside of the inner circle. But to your point, Gibbs, being outside of the inner circle means that he would have seen Katelyn on however many occasions.
Yeah.
Did something happen where he began to fixate on her? He became obsessed with her. Or he just decided that she was going to be a victim, one of his victims. Because we don't know how many people this guy has killed.
No, right now we just know the one
that
he's going to stand trial for.
I mean, it could come out later through DNA or whatever that this guy is some kind of prolific serial killer for all we know. But I think the main thing is, police continue to look into Katelyn's case. As we talk about with a lot of Unsolved, hopefully they will find some answers soon. Katelyn's family deserves that, right? And her fiance, John.
Yeah.
If he had nothing to do with this, it was a great tragedy for him as well.
Absolutely.
They all deserve answers. I do think, unlike some of the much older cases we do, there is a strong possibility that police will find the right lead, the right connection that will lead them to solve this case pretty soon.
No, I believe that. I really do. I feel strongly that this one will be resolved.
I do too. Well, part of me thinks that some additional information could come out around this Michael Strauss individual. It's not out of the realm of possibility that as part of some deal, he could be asked to provide information on other cases.
Sure.
And one of those could be the case of Katelyn Markham, and he may spill the beans.
Right.
And we might find out everything.
It's just going to be one of those ones we have to keep our eye on and see what develops.
Yeah, definitely. But that's it. That's the two cases, the case of Nikki Forrest and the case of Katelyn Markham. I hope both of them get solved.
I do too.
You think about these Unsolved and you think about the family, and it can just go on for such a long time. And it creates an unbelievable burden. I don't know if burden's the right word. It's just devastating to the family.
Yeah.
Number one, that they don't know what happened. There's no resolution.
Yeah, well,
for them. They're always wondering.
Yeah, for Nikki's family, right? What happened to her?
Mm-hmm.
And
you could say the same for Katelyn's family. I mean, they know she's deceased.
Right.
But they don't know what happened to her.
What happened? Who did it?
Yes.
And I'm sure her dad just wants, give me some justice, man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. At the heart of it all, someone has to pay for what they did. And the not knowing exactly what happened, coupled with the no one has been held responsible, and that would eat at me every single day.
I'm sure that's what happens to her dad. I'm sure it's happening to John. They're both waking up every day going, all right, what's going on today about this? Let's get something.
All right, Gibbs, we got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yeah.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name is Tanya Trujillo, and I live in the tiny town of Taos, New Mexico. I really love your podcast. I've been listening to it for many months now, and I just finished the VA murders, which is super interesting because I'm actually in nursing school. I just couldn't believe that happened. I had a little suggestion for an unsolved case. A housewoman went missing in May 2016. Her name's Holly Alcott White. That might be cool. I don't know how much information there is, but it'd be interesting to hear your guys' take, and I love you both, and I'm definitely team Geekette. So be safe. Keep your own time ticking.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate
We
that.
love the suggestions. We always write them down and add them to our list. But she said, I don't know how much information's out there. And that is one of the biggest problems with the unsolved cases.
Yeah.
It's why sometimes we have to double up and do 2 in an episode, because the stories need to be told. But when you have very little information, as happens in some of these cases, the police don't know enough.
Nope.
They haven't put out enough. There's just not enough out there to do an entire episode on one case sometimes.
But we still feel like it's important to get it out there.
Oh, yeah, I do.
That's why we do it.
I think every victim's story needs to be told. Now, we can't tell everyone's story, but
Right.
we can do as many as we can.
Yeah.
Hi guys, this is Amy. I've called before, but I just wanted to mention that when Gibby says woof, it is my absolute favorite thing I've ever heard in my life. I die laughing. It's like a gift for me. So, I love how Fergie reacts to it, and I just think it's hilarious. I just wanted to mention that. I've called before, but I forgot to say that before, and it's just so funny. Keep your own time ticking, and I'm team both of you. Bye.
Well, I will say, Gibby, that when you say woof it's one of the funniest things to me as well. Right up there with cousin.
I don't remember ever saying that like way.
You say it all the
I don't know
time.
what you're talking about.
Wolf.
I'm not going to say it.
She wants you to say it.
Hi guys, my name is Karen and I live in Rochester, New York. I've been a listener for a very long time, but this is my first time calling. I just listened to the Unsolved episode about Brittany Drexel, and I thought you guys did really well at explaining everything. I remember that I was about 11 years old when she went missing, and I just remember the utter shock that everyone was in. I remember my mom keeping a very tight leash on me and my siblings for a while after that hit back in our town. And to this day, we all still talk about her and how much we all miss her. I do know that the house that she apparently was seen in had just recently burned down, and I'm not too sure if it was due to her case or some other reason, but I just thought that was some good information to share. I also want to throw in there that Mike had mispronounced the name of our town. It's pronounced Chili, not Chili, but that's okay. Everyone always gets it wrong, especially if they're not from around here. Well, I just wanted to stop in and say hi, along with how well I was pleased with the episode, and it was so great to hear. Keep up the great work, guys, and I can't wait for the next episode.
All right. Thank you very much. Gibbs, I'm about ready to scratch the whole state of New York off the Unsolved.
All the different
and TCAT as well. New York has these names.
Yeah.
If you're going to spell it like chili, then why are we calling it Chili?
Right.
Then why don't I get a bowl of Chili?
Exactly. Wait till we see our friends at Nefarious New York, man. We're giving all kind of crap for all these names.
No, it's Oklahoma and New York. Those two.
Every time.
They have names that you look at it and you think it's obviously chili. It's spelled like chili. I eat chili. Never in a million years would I guess Chili. I wouldn't even think I need to look it up because I just assume it's chili.
And what's those mountains over there in the Carolinas called?
The Appalachian?
Appalachian?
I don't know. Well, it's the mountains versus the college. Yeah,
it's a tough one.
It is.
Hi, guys. New time listener here. Only been listening for about 3 weeks and haven't been able to stop listening. Great show. I'm actually calling in about a unsolved case up in Michigan, in Monroe, of a little girl named Nevaeh Buchanan who went missing 10 years ago. In 2009, and her body was found, and nothing has ever came of it. Didn't know if you guys maybe wanted to air it, try to get some publicity on it, to maybe get them to start looking more into it. Show's great. Would love to hear it. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
So again, we add all these cases to our list. We research them. Some we decide that there's just not enough. Some we mark that we'll have to couple it with something else, and then some we move forward with. But we appreciate it all. All right, Gibbs, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.